Sup, Chewbacca's BlackShadow305 here, alongside TheXtremeEnigma 305. And just to let you know, I'm not wearing the shirt out of pleasure, but it's good for my nipples. As part of seeing her as touch TV. All jokes aside, he has a cool shirt, and red is, in my opinion, his best. Unlike previous videos here, I'll be taking the lead role, not this chump, and essentially, this is one of my first videos. If you disagree or have any other beliefs, please leave in the comments box below. And if you bash, fuck off.
So with that being said, we're going to be doing this video on our predictions for tonight's WWE Draft 2011. For those of you who do not know, it's going to be on 2 AM this morning for the United Kingdom on Sky Sports 3. With that being said, we're going to be starting off with the draftees from Raw to the SmackDown brands. And the first person who we both believe is going to be drafted is Randy Orton. And coincidence, I'm wearing the shirt. We believe that he will be drafted on the television broadcast instead of the supplemental. And to be honest, I think Randy Orton does deserve to be drafted because right now they've run out of ideas for him on Raw. They've had this whole rivalry going on with CM Punk, and it's just run its course. It's not going to go any further after that. So get him to SmackDown, keep him in the main event picture, and just keep him going in a sense because you don't want to put him back down to mid card.
I agree. Everything you said then, because the Nexus angle just died at TLC. They're just carrying it over, which is pretty pointless. But I understand why they're doing it because it's kind of elevating the core in a sense, just making us realise them, but they're jobbers as well. And also, I feel that after last year's draft, SmackDown roster was left underpowered, as you may say.
Definitely.
I think maybe Sheamus could get drafted. I think that's because it would shake up both the mid-card titles by drafting both him and Wade Barrett, possibly. And I think that's because Sheamus would do better as top singles on SmackDown, I guess. Being able to face guys that he hasn't really faced before, such as Kane and Big Show. And
definitely. Yeah, moving on to our next draftee will be Mason Ryan. The reason I say Mason Ryan is because, you know, he's not exactly fitting in well with the Nexus. I know he's got a lot more potential than what he's being put through at the moment on Raw. So I believe that if they traded him over to SmackDown, he can then push himself even further as maybe a top heel or maybe a top face of the brand, and possibly get for the main event championships as well as elevating his career on SmackDown.
You can tell that because on last week's Raw, he was like pushing over the Nexus members. So it shows he's more significant than the rest of them jobbers.
Definitely.
I think Mark Henry will be drafted in the supplementary draft because it's a shame, really, because he's a veteran. He's done his run for like 10 years. And still, he's just underpowered. Yeah, more than that. He's just a jobber. Maybe he may need a mid-card title. And
at least, really. I mean, you got to give him something. If you got guys like him, you got guys like Goldust, Kane. You want to use them to their best extent because if not, they're just going to fuck off the TNA.
I regret saying you fat bastard at the show.
Moving on to the next draftee would be Ted DiBiase Jr. And for those of you who've seen my recent video on who I believe should be drafted, Ted DiBiase was in fact the top of that list. And I'm going to repeat what I said there in saying that Ted DiBiase, he's apparently the future of the company when they brought him in, along with Cody Rhodes. And after both him and Cody Rhodes were taken apart in last year's draft, Ted DiBiase has literally gone downhill from losing both Virgil and the $1 Million Championship. I mean, he had some shitty little rivalry with Daniel Bryan late last year, but that went nowhere.
He's the next Drew.
Exactly. He's just gone into complete jobber stage. So if you want to use Ted DiBiase and make him credible for the future, do exactly what they did with Randy Orton. Put him into a good team with some veterans on SmackDown, give him a championship, bang, there's your future.
If they were going to draft him, they would probably do it on TV first off, just to like shake things up at the start of the Raw, just to get us all in the mood. The next person I think get drafted is, I think you can agree with me on this, Natalya.
Yeah.
Should be in the supplementary draft, because it's just curse of the jobber, really. I think if she goes to SmackDown, she'll have more success.
And she's a talented diva on the roster, possibly one of the best on there, seeing as she's from the Hart family. So I think it's only fair that they use her to her top ability like they have before, and take her over to SmackDown. Which brings me on to my next draftee, would be Daniel Bryan. And once again, this is on my list of who should be drafted. Unfortunately, after the whole rivalry with Sheamus for the United States Championship, things have just gone downhill for Daniel Bryan. And I think everyone can agree with me when I say he is some top talent that WWE have acquired after NXT 1. And the whole thing with him being released for some reason, obviously you got to use him to the best of his abilities. So take him to SmackDown, bump him up to the main event talent before he goes off to TNA, because the American Dragon definitely deserves to be staying in the top picture of television.
Agree with you. They're just throwing away talent. He's had his rub with New Japan. I mean, come on. If anyone can make it there, they can just make it. And I think R-Truth will also get drafted. This is controversial because I don't know what they're gonna do with him. No one does. But his recent heel turn on Raw against John Morrison, in case you haven't seen, showed him just getting annoyed, really.
It shows that he can definitely be pushed up to the top talent of the brand. With a new heel character, surely they can push him a little further on SmackDown.
Yeah, and get him a main event spot there, so he can go against guys such as Christian and Rey Mysterio.
I think they'd be pretty good rivalries, to be honest.
They would.
Moving on to the next of the supplemental draft, Diva Melina, who unfortunately hasn't been used as much as what they... God, it did. Unfortunately hasn't been used to the best of her abilities recently, and yet again become a jobber after a little heel turn, like late last year. So hopefully if they draft her over in the supplemental draft, then possibly we could see another main event run for Melina in the Divas division.
Your favourite Diva in it? Biased. Can't be biased, man. I think Swagger, because really, he's not used at the moment. And I think WWE are just forgetting he's a former World Heavyweight Champion. He deserves another run to polish his skills, which will just make him a more credible champ. Like at WrestleMania, he wasn't even in a full match, he was just ringside.
It was a real shame after this huge push over the past year. He definitely deserves to come back up.
I heard that they downgraded him because he was getting all cocky backstage.
It's a shame to see that because it's really let down some of his fans.
Yeah.
Moving on, Alex Riley, I reckon, will be drafted to SmackDown. Now, a lot of people would disagree with me because of that.
I agree.
But the whole thing with him and The Miz, it's getting dried out. And, give him a run as a singles competitor at least. And yeah, he's a great guy. He can work a crowd really well. So at least give him a run on SmackDown by himself, just so he can show off his true skills.
I think Zack Ryder can get drafted, basically for the aforementioned reasons. Just give him more skills.
I think everyone's forgetting, just like what they did with Swagger, that he is a former WWE Tag Team Champion alongside Kurt Hawkins. And with this whole new camera time thing he's got going on YouTube, which I have linked in my previous video, surely that means he can definitely still work on camera. So please just draft him in the supplemental thing. Please keep him away from superstars.
Camera on YouTube. I think Tyson Kidd in the supplementary draft, because after his big heel turn last year, it's great to see him on top of... Well, it'd be great to see him on top mid-card, but he's not. We don't see him. He's on Superstars and fucking NXT.
Curse of the jobber once again.
Yeah. I'd like to see him face off against for mid-card titles, like IC and US titles. That would be pretty awesome.
He had his little run against Daniel Bryan last year, but just like Ted DiBiase, it went nowhere, and it destroyed his character.
As you said, DiBiase had Virgil, he had Jackson Andrew. Look where he ended up. That killed his character by releasing him.
Exactly. If they kept both of them in, surely both of the superstars, respectively, would have gone further in their careers.
Which leads me on to Gail Kim, really. Basically, supplementary draft, just because Daniel Bryan will get drafted. I strongly think he'll get drafted, and with him, Gail Kim.
Moving on to the SmackDown superstars going to Raw. Tyler Rex in the supplemental draft. Now, in my opinion, Tyler Rex is a good athlete. He's gone quite far in the past year. I mean, he came onto the scene on round about bragging rights time, where he defeated Caval to get onto the SmackDown team, which I think a lot of people...
They overhyped him, though, that's the thing. They're just throwing it away.
So if they drafted him, hopefully they'll be able to use him to the top of his abilities.
Shame, really, to see people end up like this. They deserve much better. Like Caitlyn, for example. Seeing as she won NXT 3, it's about time she got a shot for the title. Whatever happened to that? They drafted her to give her credibility rather than a stepping stone. Must be a reason she won NXT after all.
Moving on to Ezekiel Jackson, who I believe will be drafted on TV tonight. As a main member of the core, recently he's been taken out of the whole picture, and I think that he's some top talent right there. He definitely deserves a bigger push than what he's getting.
With guns like that.
I mean,
how can that go amiss?
If they draft over to Raw, then possibly they'll be able to use him to the best of his abilities against guys such as Big Show, Kane. I know they're on SmackDown, but Guys like them, I'm sure you
Yeah.
get my drift.
I also think Kofi Kingston will get drafted. He is my most hated superstar. He still is, but curse of the jobber really. He was good on Raw in 2009 against his rivalries of Randy Orton, which led to him doing boom drops through tables. Now what do we see? Him friggin' pulling off the title at the same time as Swagger in a ladder match.
It's pretty stupid to see they've toned down Kofi Kingston after such a huge push to the main event.
Yeah.
I think it shows that he definitely isn't going to be the main event talent we all expected.
And also, is he Jamaican or African?
God knows. Evan Bourne, I believe, will be drafted in the supplemental draft this year. The sole purpose because he is a great athlete, he's a great entertainer, and I think it's about time they send him over to SmackDown. Possibly have him going along with Rey Mysterio. I mean, seeing as they got Sin Cara on Raw, they've got enough high flying there.
Yeah.
Put the high flying, speedy stuff over on SmackDown before they lose everything.
Yeah. Therefore, they can brand much more strength, giving it much more strength than it was previously. Drew McIntyre, probably. Because it's just killing off his chosen one, seeing him be a jobber. His angles with Kelly. I mean, what was up with that? They just killed that angle.
It's sort of the same for Ted DiBiase as well. He was the supposed future of the WWE, and yet they've both been killed off television. Basically stepping stones.
Some future.
Yeah, some future that was meant to be. It really is unfortunate to see guys like Drew McIntyre be pushed down to jobber level. I mean, come on, you guys have got to use it for some sort of storyline.
I can't understand why they're putting him on hold for a bit, because Alberto Del Rio is doing all this Destiny thing, and if they had two people doing that at once, it'd be a bit weird, but yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Moving on to Wade Barrett, one of my personal favourites. Now, this is a maybe to be drafted, to be honest, because just like Sheamus, of course, they're both champions, but it'd be great to switch the brands over, just so both of the respective championships would go back to their former brands. And I think that Wade on Raw would have been much more successful if he didn't go to SmackDown with the core, because I think it's about time we see him more of a singles competitor rather than leading a group, because it's just holding him back in a sense.
Yeah, rather than elevate all of them, it's not really elevating any of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And with angles like the apple and stuff.
That went nowhere.
What's up with that? Layla will be drafted on TV probably. Curse of the jobber, really. Enough said.
Alberto Del Rio. Now, a lot of people would disagree with me with this as well, but to be honest, I think it would shake a lot of things up by having him on Raw and possibly feuding him with some of the top talent on Raw, such as John Cena. Or, well, they even push him as far as Triple H, maybe. Who knows?
But you already know that.
You already do know that. So, Alberto Del Rio to Raw would be a great move, I reckon.
And which leads us on to Teddy Long.
Probably the strangest of our draft picks, but...
Yeah, Teddy Long. We all know on SmackDown, he's literally clawing for survival, just coming out every SmackDown. Just to put him on Raw. Every start of Raw, save Cena coming out.
It saves us always having to hear Michael Cole.
Agreed. This kind of backs up my next point, actually, which is the final and most shocking. I think the anonymous Raw general manager will in fact get drafted. If it happens, you heard it from me first. It would just shake things up majorly. It's the kind of thing WWE would do. Anonymous SmackDown GM. Of course, this would lead to Teddy Long being drafted, which we just mentioned prior.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be a good thing to have it go over to SmackDown, just to, well, take the heat off Raw in a way. I know it's for entertainment factors and that lot, but still. So, which moves us on to the final of every single draft pick, and possibly the most realistic one out of each and every one of them.
Yeah.
Edge to TNA.
TNA!
He's going to pull a Ric Flair, guys. Come on, can't you see it coming? This whole retirement speech thing. Let's be honest, TNA are going to be barking at the doors for him.
Yeah, look at that send-off. Then on SmackDown, he just appeared for the last 30 seconds.
Either have him as a commentator, a backstage interviewer, or send him off to TNA.
Well, that concludes our draft picks on BlackShadow305 and TheXtremeEnigma 305. Good night, everybody.